Right, so my name is Sahir Khan. This is Professor Alice Goffman.
Hi.
We'll be interviewing about her job. It'll be an occupational interview. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day.
No problem.
To talk
Happy to
to
do it.
So I guess what we could start out with is what exactly is your job title?
I'm an assistant professor of sociology
Okay.
here at Madison.
And something that interested me was your career path, because it seems like you do a lot more than just teach. You do a lot of very different things. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about the breadth of what you do.
So I guess I do a lot of research,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and lately I've been doing a lot of interviews with reporters and like radio stuff
Mm-hmm.
in the next couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
because a book I wrote just came out. So it's been
Cool.
a lot of things that are distracting me from teaching, which is my real love. So
Yeah.
it's a balance.
Yeah. So what I guess I'm hearing you say is that teaching is where your interests really lie. What made you realize that this was
both. No, both. I mean,
okay.
I love that universities are places where you can find out new things about the world, and then also teach students and train students to find out new things about the world. It's I hope we get to hold on to that for a little while longer, a few more decades,
for sure,
at least.
What helped you realize that this was your passion? Like, when did this realization occur?
I started college with like a deep interest in doing field work. I'm an ethnographer, so it's the part of sociology that observes people over time as people kind of live their everyday lives and takes notes, and so it's kind of like immersive journalism. You write a lot of field notes, and you're with a group of people every day for years and years, and so I kind of knew going into college that I wanted to do that. I took a year off between high school and college, and I'd read a bunch of sociology and totally fallen in love with it. So when I started college, I was like super gung-ho to do this research. I didn't know what research,
right.
But I knew that I wanted to do some kind of research. And,
that's super cool. So when you were in college, what courses did you take, or I guess what was your major?
I was a soc major.
Okay.
And I only wanted to take sociology classes. I constantly was trying to get out of all the other like general requirements, or push them off until later. I tried to only take classes where I could do the research that I was doing in this neighborhood in Philadelphia, and then turn that in as a final paper. So I was like constantly scouring the course descriptions to see what class would let me do that.
Right.
I was just like obsessed with this research project. So I put off statistics and math and science, and I did all that like in a totally wimpy way. Like I took, like, to fulfill the science requirement, I did oceanography, like at the University of Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
And then I did like environmental science online. Like I was just I just really wanted to be in this neighborhood in Philly doing this field work. So. And I got to take all these graduate classes. It was amazing. I took a fieldwork class, an undergrad fieldwork ethnography class. This guy, Dave Grazian, who was like this old old school Chicago professor who like very much kind of steeped in a tradition of observing urban life as it is lived and thinking about the city and interaction. And so he was terrific. And he kind of introduced us to this whole kind of history of Chicago school ethnography, is like people studying different neighborhoods and how the neighborhoods work together in a city and doing this participant observation. So that was really great.
Yeah.
And then I got to take classes with a whole bunch of other like kind of very, very big time ethnographers in sociology. So that was like really lucky.
Yeah. It sounds like you were really inspired by your undergrad experience and who you got to work with.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So what I heard you talk about your experience in Philadelphia. What year were you when you started working in Philadelphia, or you started doing your field work in Philadelphia?
I was 19 when I started, and then 20. Maybe I was 20, 19 or 20.
Okay.
So so freshman year I took a job at a cafeteria on campus, and that was like my first fieldwork setting, and I went in and made sandwiches and wrote notes, and the other people at the cafeteria were like these were older African American women who were from the kind of surrounding area, and so I worked under them for a semester, and then I got to know my boss, and then the next year I asked her if she knew anybody who needed tutoring, so then I got to go and hang out at her house and tutor her grandkids, and then through her grandkids I met, one of the young women who I was tutoring, her cousin came home from like a juvenile detention center, and so we started hanging out in his neighborhood, which was like 10 blocks away. By then I was living in the neighborhood. I was totally like immersed in this fieldwork project, and like kind of commuting back to college for class and stuff, and like writing my field notes during class. That's a really nice time to write field notes.
Yeah.
So her cousin came home from juvenile detention, and then through him I met his older cousin Mike, and like a couple weeks after I met Mike, he caught this gun case, and he started going to court for the case, and like I went to court with him and realized that like many other men in the neighborhood were also in this courthouse. Like they were not at school, they were not at work, they were not with their families, they were like in this courthouse, like all cased up, and they had warrants, and they had probation, and they had parole, and they were just like spending their kind of young adulthood in the criminal justice system. So that's what I ended up writing my dissertation about, and now a book. And so yeah, it all started when I was an undergrad.
That's cool. That's really cool. So just hear you, it sounds like you spent a lot of time in this Philadelphia neighborhood, and you found this passion in a work that just started from a cafeteria and moved into a neighborhood. Yeah. So now here you are, a professor or assistant professor at the UW. What is your occupational environment like here as an assistant professor?
It's awesome. The department here is so great. Like it's it's like the top department in the country right now, and so it's like full of really brilliant people, but it's just very like warm and fuzzy and homey, and like no one has a giant ego, and people are really nice to each other, and just supportive, and there's this kind of emphasis on for the commons, like what is good for everyone, fairness, transparency.
Cool.
So, and the students are awesome. The graduate students are awesome. The undergrad students are awesome. So I'm like, I couldn't be happier. I feel so lucky to have this job. Yeah.
So, are the hours are they pretty flexible, and do you kind of get to see that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I work a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have hobbies. I work all the time, but I do it because I really want to do it. I just recently met a couple of assistant professors who like have a totally different attitude about work. Like they are working to get tenure, and they are working to like, I mean, they love it, right? But like it feels like a job. Like they have to push themselves to show up in the morning, even when sometimes they don't want to. I'm totally like a hedonist about it. Like I'm just here because like it's really fun. Like, all the parts that are, like the teaching is super fun, and like watching the students do their projects is awesome, and the research is awesome, and the writing is amazing. Like I just really I just love doing it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I hope you find something like that in life that you're like. It's just such a rare thing, most people have jobs that they sort of, sometimes there are good parts and bad parts, sometimes they really don't want to get up in the morning, but I wish for you something.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So it sounds like you really you like the environment you live in, you work in, you love it.
Yeah, I really do.
So what's the, I guess, not the worst part about your job, or the part that you don't really like?
I mean, there are fewer hours in the day than students that I want to train. Like there are graduate students who I train a lot of graduate students, and I wish I could, I wish I was 3 people and I could train twice as many. So there's kind of these trade-offs about, where are you going to spend your hours? So I think I just, so there's that. There's, what else? No, it's such a great gig. I mean, we worry, right, that now higher education is going to be completely changed in the next couple of decades. Who knows what it will look like? These jobs that are that you get to have for life, where you get to do the research that you want and teach, they may not exist, in 30 years. So that's a worry that I have.
That is sad.
But hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We'll get to still be here. Yeah.
So, I get that was a question I was going to ask you, is how the future outlook of this job is looking for, new undergrads or people of my age.
I mean, it's such a different landscape now. I mean, there's just, not just MOOCs, but like just the whole role of higher education in the world, I mean, I think, there was this enormous opening up of higher education to women, to people of color, to poor people in the past half century. And now we're seeing, again, these major changes in terms of, how to teach a class. Will there be classrooms in 20 years? Will everything be online?
Right.
What will that mean for, people say that, like, the kind of most prestigious universities will endure because people will always want to have graduated from them. But what will it mean for everybody else? State universities, the funding has been cut so much in our state.
Yeah,
for sure. So, so I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But it also just makes me feel really lucky to be alive right now, doing this.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So some other questions I was thinking of along those lines were, I can't remember.
It's so cool that you don't have notes. Did you memorize the questions?
No, we just had to have like an outline of something that we wanted to do, and just to make it be more, I guess, personal and to flow the interview instead of having structured questions where you kind of skip things. So I'd rather flow.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess some more questions I had were along the lines of someone in my shoes, like what I would do in terms of like what types of classes would you suggest I take if I want to see if that's where my interest is, because as I mentioned in our email, I've always been like medicine since I was little.
Yeah.
But I read one of your excerpts in my social class last semester, and I was like, let me go declare a criminal justice certificate. It was just immediate, and when you started talking
that's
about
awesome.
the way your
That's
job
so cool.
was, like how you have this passion, that's like what I felt when I read your work, and I thought that was so cool.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Oh, no problem.
So what major are you now?
I'm bio and psych and a criminal justice certificate. So I'm kind of doing like, here's all my MCAT stuff, but I want to see like there may be something else I want to do.
Yeah.
But it's.
I mean, there's so many ways to like affect major change in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I think having a medical degree is a great way to do that. I think you kind of want to pick some combination of something you're really good at and something that could have. I mean, if your object is to really influence what happens in the lives of other people, that's not everybody's like goal. I don't know. But I think thinking about how to kind of shape what is to come, I think the people who have the most influence are people who have gotten really, really good at something.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't really matter what that thing is. Like, getting really, really good at something can give you a platform to affect change. So you kind of want to pick the thing that you really like doing and the thing that you're good at.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people come into sociology from activism or from medicine or from law or from a lot of people who come into graduate school in sociology have not so much medical degrees. A lot of them have law degrees or policy degrees, and they want to learn how to do like systematic research. There's this idea that doing research gives you more of a mouthpiece to shape than just sort of talking.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, I mean, it's been really exciting for me because there's just been this, when I started this research, there was really no hope that criminal justice policy would be changing anytime soon. We were seeing, these historically high incarceration rates and the kind of tough on crime rhetoric, zero tolerance. It just didn't seem like it was going anywhere. And the sort of plight of criminals, African American criminals, Latino criminals, it was like politically toxic. Like it was just there was no movement on this. Nobody wanted to touch that issue. And now it's all different. For the past 4 years, we've seen these very small decreases in incarceration rates across the country, and even in my home state of Pennsylvania, which was slow on that kind of move, is now kind of starting to do that. And President Obama is giving speeches about ending the drug war, and Eric Holder is talking about doing away with 3 strikes and all of this. And then there's this whole kind of drug decriminalization thing happening kind of in parallel. And So it's just been really, you know, and even like the most it's amazing, like the most sort of conservative or like staunch, tough on crime people within the criminal justice sort of system are now kind of realizing that there's this change afoot and wanting to get in front of that and be part of that. And so it's just incredible, like we're having these conversations about reform now that I mean, the people, those of us who've been working on this for, you know, a decade or 2 decades, just, we were totally, despondent about it. So now it's like really, really exciting. So
awesome.
You know, I mean, I think in your lifetime it will be a question of whether or not the new normal is just a little bit down from these like historically high rates, and or whether we'll really find a new way to deal with poverty in this country rather than to imprison people.
For sure.
And whether, you know, we can get back to like rates from the 1960s and kind of deal with the problems that predated mass incarceration, you know, poverty, violence, hunger, you know, economic exclusion of minority groups. And so I think it's really exciting. It's like a really exciting time. So I encourage you to be part of that in whatever way, you know, whatever way you feel, you know. I mean, there's all these like, you know, I mean, I think there are people in policy schools, and there are people in social work, and there are people in law, and there are people in sociology, and there's just a ton of different ways to become active in this.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, if you love medicine, I don't know, do you love medicine?
I do. It's something that since I was raised with it, it feels like second nature.
Are your parents?
My mom's a doctor, and my dad was in Pakistan when she was in residency, so I was always with her. I was always in the hospital with her, and it's just where I was raised.
Yeah,
so
my parents are professors, same thing. I was just, so it's just kind of what I know.
What you're in.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of gives you a lot of, you know, it's this kind of extra privilege to have parents who were in the field that you want to go into. You know all these things that...
For sure.
I think for me, like, doing the research that I did in Philly, it was partly possible because I had so much support from my parents. Most parents would never have understood what I was trying to do or been supportive. They were just... They're field workers, my parents. They're not sociologists, but close enough. And so, like, having that kind of background, I think, you know, you can, like, really use that to your advantage. I mean, it's so anyway, go medicine. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, there's all these, so like there's a lot of action around these issues in hospitals. Like, so like San Francisco has this whole like Haven, what is it called? Safe Haven thing where like, so like in Philadelphia, hospitals become these major conduits for arrests because police are there with shooting victims or with people who they've beaten, who they bring to the hospital to get patched up before they can take them to the police station. And so going to the hospital is this really dangerous thing. So there's this whole kind of underground market of healthcare for people who are too scared to go because of their legal entanglements. But then there are cities where like anybody can go to the hospital and not be worried about getting arrested or being deported. And San Francisco is one of them. So I mean, there's also this whole thing around the medical care that's provided in prisons. So like for lots of poor men, that's the only medical care that they get. And I don't know. So there's like a lot of ways to be in medicine and be really involved in this. If this is like a, you know, like a movement that you care about or a social problem that you care about. Anyway.
So that was really helpful. Overall, it sounds like we discussed that this is something that you found a passion in very like early in your life, and you know through the support of your parents and almost seeing what your parents do, as well as the experiences you had in undergrad with your different professors. And that you did this work in Philadelphia, and it's added a lot to your current job that you hold. It's not just a teaching what you do. You do a lot of ethnography and other things like that.
I mean, this is a Research One university, so any professor here is doing a lot of research as well as teaching, which is cool because then you get to be in class with people who are like, I didn't understand that in undergrad, like that there were these people who are teaching other people's ideas, and then there are people who like are finding out new things and then telling you as they find them. And that's like really, really cool. And sometimes those people aren't the best teachers necessarily, but those are the people who are like in the middle of doing really like exciting research. So like to get that at a university is like super cool. You know?
Yeah. So cool. Is there like anything that you think I missed overall?
No.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
having this
pleasure.
interview.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
appreciated it.
Yeah. Please keep in touch. Let me know what you do with your
What
life.
happens,
What
yeah.
you do with your fabulous life. Yeah.
I'll put it in this.